Emergency podcast. Nick Gordon DFA'd by the Marlins. Derek Hill taking his spot on the roster. One of the Marlins' big trade acquisitions in the offseason does not make it to the end of the campaign. DFA'd. Also, the Marlins on the road split the series against the Braves. Skip Schumaker is managing this group like an absolute king. Does he return to the Marlins next year? Tons to get into. This is Locked on Marlins.
You are Locked on Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to Locked on Marlins. This is your daily Marlins pod. I'm your host, Peter Pratt. Hit me up, of course, at Miami Marlins _UK. If you're listening to the pod, firstly, happy Monday. Hopefully that series split against the Bravos has got a spring in your step. Make sure you hit subscribe to Locked on Marlins as well. It's available everywhere and every day. This is also part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Thanks for making Locked on Marlins your first listen of the day. Reminder, there's also a YouTube channel. Make sure you hit subscribe over on the YouTube channel. If you are watching, you can see it's a solo pod. No guest this time, unfortunately. So I'm running solo, but join me in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. Speaking too fast there. Let me know your thoughts on the Nick Gordon DFA news. Derek Hill taking his spot on the roster, recently claimed via waivers. Looking to work out where he can slot in. Nick Gordon DFA'd. Big news. Big news. The Marlins have acquired Derek Hill. Plus, there is another waiver claim. Brett DeGoose. Not 100% sure on the pronunciation. Again, when are the Marlins? I mean, Derek Hill is actually one of them. But can the Marlins acquire more Derek Hills and less Brett DeGoose? I never know how to pronounce any of these guys' names. It's so tough. Nevertheless, let me know your thoughts on that one. So, tons to get into here on Monday's episode, as there always is after a big weekend series, particularly against the Bravos. And I'm going to proclaim it. I'm going to give you my sense of where I see the Braves as well as we get into this episode. It is sponsored, though, by our good friends over at PrizePicks. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Simply go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use the code. It's all lowercase, LockedOnMLB, for a first deposit match up to $100. Let's start with the breaking news. The breaking news that Nick Gordon has been DFA'd. As you know, Locked on Marlins, finger is always on the pulse here. Me and Sean Barrett on Friday, I think it was Friday, we spoke about Nick Gordon specifically. I asked the question to Sean, what's the future looking like for Nick Gordon, considering all of these roster moves the Marlins were making? And we get our answer. The future for Nick Gordon is not with the Marlins. Acquired via trade for Stephen O'Kurt, headed over to the Twins. Nick Gordon across to the Marlins. Unfortunately for Nick Gordon, right now anyway, I'm on Baseball Reference. He has a negative 1.7 WAR on Baseball Reference. Unreal. An OPS plus of 71, OPS itself of 627. 8 home runs in there. 8 home runs, 32 RBIs, 5 stolen bags. Nick Gordon played a ton of left field, a little bit of center field once Jazz was moved. I didn't really see too much of him in the infield. Probably surprise, the Marlins obviously have a logjam there. But Nick Gordon, unfortunately, he started hot, particularly on Sundays. But man, oh man, it's been a bit of a sneaky struggle for him. When you look at his OPS generally, it's OPS plus, it's 71. 2023, his OPS plus was 35 with the Twins. Granted, that was only a 91 at bats, so lot smaller sample size. But yeah, we saw that in 2023. He was, coming off a 2022 campaign, which looked to be, he was looking like the real deal with an OPS plus of 111, hitting 272. Unfortunately, for Nick Gordon, it's kind of regression back to what we've seen prior to that 21 campaign, 23 campaign, And I guess this is kind of what he is. This is the guy he is with an OPS plus of circa like 70. He's a below average hitter at this point, and has been. So are we surprised that the Marlins move on from Nick Gordon? No, absolutely not. I think this is probably in some ways the right move. I think they've given Nick Gordon enough of an opportunity this year to have a look. Hasn't gone well. And so they move on. The business model, this is it. We're seeing it now where the roster churn is just insane. Are you struggling to keep up with all these roster moves? Because I am. I am struggling to keep up with all these roster moves. I don't know who these guys are. Honestly, I was watching the game the other day, and there's guys in the outfield I've never seen before. Guy out there playing left field. Who's this guy? I mean, I'm doing this pod now. It's Locked On Marlins. I'm the host of it, and I can't even remember the guy's name. Something like Helmsley or something, playing left field. I've never heard of these guys. Saw a tweet earlier that kind of sums it up, that the Marlins are in spring training already. It's the 5th of August. Spring training for 25 has already started. They're cycling through so many guys. I know it feels a bit extreme, but that's kind of the reality here. They are being, there's so much, roster cycles, so much roster churn going on. And so, the Marlins are really just homing a hit on guys. They have a look, see if there's anything there. If not, move on. That's the model at this point. That's the blueprint for a rebuilding roster, which they are. They've traded away a third of their roster at the deadline or near to the deadline. They've got, spaces to fill. They've already moved on some other guys earlier in the year. Obviously, Avisel Garcia, Luis Arias being two of them. So they're just trying to find guys. They're trying to find maybe the next Otto Lopez. However, Otto Lopez, after a hot start, has regressed also. So, man, the Marlins are leaving, in summary here, the Marlins are leaving no stone unturned. If there is a waiver claim to be made, they are in on it. No doubt about it. They are in on it. And I think that's going to continue the rest of the way. Like, if there's guys that are on waivers, the slightly frustrating thing, I just want to call it out, and it kind of popped up a few days ago. Someone reminded me on Twitter about this. But do you remember when the San Francisco Giants decided to waive Joey Bart? Did they waive him? I'm slightly doubting myself now. Nevertheless, he was available. I'm pretty sure they waived him as part of it was a DFA for Joey Bart. And then they inevitably made a trade, so they didn't lose him for nothing. And Joey Bart's looking like he's had a decent year for the Pirates this year. Still a little bit stunned at that point in the year when it was pretty clear the Marlins were struggling just generally. They've claimed everyone else apart from Joey Bart, which is pretty funny. Listen, I'm not here to, lambast Peter Bendix for that move or lack of move or whatever it might be. But again, for a team that struggled significantly at the catcher position and a former huge prospect name in Joey Bart that was available, I found it pretty strange that the Marlins decided not to make a move. They may have put a claim in, but then a trade gazumped them, potentially going to the Pirates. He obviously then hit a home run in his first, I think, at bat, if I remember correctly. Let's see what Joey Bart's doing stats-wise. I mean, I wasn't expecting to talk about Joey Bart, but let's see what he's doing this year. Okay, he's got a positive, again, baseball reference, a 1.3 WAR. He's had 8 home runs. He's hitting 265, an OPS plus of 137. Yeah, frankly, Joey Bart would have been the best hitter on this Marlins offense. I think that kind of that sums it up. Bendix, actually, I'm gonna retract that. Bendix, that was a complete miss shot from you. You've got to be making those claims, claiming everyone else apart from the best one. Oh man. You can tell it's Monday. You can tell it's been a fun weekend. And it has been a fun weekend from a Marlins baseball perspective. So we're going to talk about that after the first ad now and just recap on this Brave series. Equally, then we'll look ahead at the guys that have been added to the active roster in Derek Hill. Also talking about Brett DeGoose that has been claimed but has been optioned to AAA. So the Marlins restocking their reliever requirements, which makes sense after a busy deadline. And I also want to give some love to Xavier Edwards. Unfortunately, because of the trade deadline and all of the activity, it's gone under the radar on this show specifically around Xavier Edwards and the impact he's had. Particularly, I mean, there should have been an emergency podcast for his cycle. There wasn't, and I apologize to Xavier Edwards for that and for every Marlins fan out there. So we're going to talk about him and give him some love a little bit later in the show too. Before we do that, let's firstly let you know about our good friends over at Liquid IV. Yes, sir. And when you're taking in America's pastime, don't forget to hydrate with the Liquid IV's Popsicle Firecracker flavor, a surefire summer hit. You can get hydrated with electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brand in America. Because baseball and summer go together like Liquid IV and indulgent hydration. They've got tons of flavors. And like I already mentioned, you can blast off with the iconic summer flavor of Popsicle Firecracker, a festive blend of citrus, fueled lemon lime, tart cherry, and raspberry flavors. You can get all your favorite flavors on their website. My favorite, of course, the pina colada. Yes, sir, it's pina colada season in August. No doubt about it. So, no more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration. Indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. Messed that one up a little bit. Sorry. But get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use the code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. All right, guys, welcome back to Locked on Marlins with me, Peter Pratt. It is Monday, the 5th of August. Nick Gordon DFA'd. DFA'd. He was acquired via trade by the Marlins for Stephen Okert. Didn't work out for Big Nick. Few big bombs early in the season. I was enjoying what I was seeing early on, I'm not going to lie. Remember as well that the Marlins seemed to face like a million left-handed starters early in the season. So, there was a struggle for Nick Gordon and Jesus Sanchez to get their season rolling. Both of them, platoon guys, and they're facing the lefties a lot. There was a lot of bench time early in the campaign. They then faced some righties, and both those guys would perform. Unfortunately for Nick Gordon, it's tailed off, I would say, quite significantly for quite a sustained period. So not a surprise. Let's talk about the on-field stuff, though. The Brave series, a split series with the Bravos. They came into this series, looking like they may have turned a corner a touch. They've made a few deadline moves that needed to be done. The Phillies were scuttling, the Mets scuttling. All of a sudden, the Braves bang live again. We then look at what they delivered in this series, a split series with the Marlins. The Sunday in particular, they were shut out at home for the first time in, I think, 230-something games. So no one shuts the Bravos out at home at Truist. They don't. It just doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. Eddie Cabrera in the bullpen, though, made it happen 7-0 to the Marlins. The funny thing is, and this always happens, the Marlins lineup on Sunday was a Don Mattingly special. No doubt. There was a lot of, jokes made around that. But of course, baseball is baseball. And the Marlins end up spanking the Bravos 6 runs in a single inning, which really kind of changed the game. So when I looked at the Braves, I watched that game. I'm watching the Braves. I'm watching to see what's going on. Yeah, Max Fried wasn't on. We get it. Max Fried, coming back from, a bit of an injury scare, let's say. He was erratic. He was loose. And yeah, frankly, if the Marlins had a better offense than they did, it would have been a double-digit win, to be honest with you. 7-0, whilst it seems lopsided, it could have been even more lopsided. That flattered the Braves. It could have been a 12-0. You could have had, some positional player throwing the 7th inning and 8th inning. It could have been that bad for the Braves. But hey-ho, the Marlins offense, came together in one single inning, though. But from a Braves perspective, Fried was off. I also looked around at the group, and it looked defensively, the body language was off. They looked slow, sluggish, laborious. Like they weren't bothered. They should be looking at that Sunday game thinking, okay, we can't have a split with the Marlins. The Marlins, in general, this year, terrible. However, the one thing that's slightly under the radar is the Marlins, since the All-Star break, have been super competitive. They've probably been one of the better organizations and clubs in baseball since the All-Star break, particularly considering strength of schedule. So, yes, the Marlins have been terrible. Yes, they've traded everyone away. Absolutely. But that group is coming together. And they're scrapping away, and there's opportunities, right? Guys are playing for jobs. There's no multi-year contract guys that know they're at zero risk of being moved. There's no Avisel Garcias in there that get playing time irrespective. This is a group that, if you don't perform, you'll be DFA'd. And who knows what happens then? So there's some juice here flying around the Marlins roster. Like there's people here auditioning. A lot of these guys are in spring training auditions right now. So I found it very strange that the Braves came out that flat on the Sunday game. I'm going to call it now. And, great episodes on Thursday with @AcunaTracker. We were talking about the Braves and what their season could look like, and are they still in the mix for the division and, the wild card, etc. I'm going to call it right now. I haven't seen the Braves up front, up close and personal in the last couple of days, that I think they're going to miss the postseason. I think if that level of performance continues, I think the Braves are going to miss the postseason entirely this year, which seems crazy to say out loud considering their divisional dominance for years. But that's not a good team. It's not a good team. And they're in trouble. And there's other teams that are surging. The Braves have been going the wrong direction for some time, and I think they're going to get caught up and surpassed. I think the Padres are going to be beyond them. I think the Diamondbacks will. I think the Mets will. I think the Braves are going to miss the postseason. Wild scenes. Let's not talk about the Marlins. Let's talk about Eddie Cabrera, because we need to talk about Eddie Cabrera. And yesterday, yes, it was only 5 innings of Eddie Cabrera, but the stuff was on. In the 5th inning, specifically the 5th inning, and we've seen it many times where, going through the order, the 2nd, 3rd time, this inning pops up with Eddie Cabrera. This inning, this blow-up inning, just appears out of nowhere and walks everyone, starts pitching like he's blindfolded. Lo and behold, 5th inning starts, walk. First batter walk, thinking, oh, here we go again. I was onto it thinking, Skip, get that bullpen phone fired up. Not sure who's in the bullpen, by the way, but that's a side point. But get that pen fired up. Here we go. Here's that inning that's going to get away from Eddie Cabrera. Didn't see that, though, yesterday. He buckled down, got the outs, no damage. 5 clean innings from Eddie Cabrera. Yes, it's only 5. And obviously, we're looking for more like 6. We're looking for 6, 100 pitches, limit the walks, et cetera, et cetera. But super encouraging from Eddie Cabrera. He's an enigma, a complete enigma. From one game to the next, from one inning to the next, you just don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what you're going to get. So these are the little reminders of who Eddie Cabrera could be if there was a degree of consistency in his game. Unfortunately, there's just such a lack of consistency. And it can only be, it's only likely to be mental. There must be something mental happening with Eddie Cabrera along the way. But in the start yesterday, he was able to self-correct. There was a quick mound visit, though, I must say. FYI, again, if you're not watching the games, and I appreciate it was a Sunday, you're doing other things than watching the Marlins against the Braves, and the Marlins result doesn't matter. If you weren't watching it, I was. Why? I was watching it. Walked the first hitter straight away. Ali Sanchez straight out there. Little mound visit. A little pat on the bum to Eddie. You've got it, buddy. And got the strikeout, I think, to finish the inning. Was pumped. Great to see the emotion from Eddie Cabrera. I'm very interested to see what the future holds for Eddie Cabrera more generally with the Marlins when we head into next season. And, maybe there's some decisions to make around the rotation. We don't know. We don't know who's going to be around, who's going to be available. We don't know what the future holds for Luzardo. We don't know if Sandy will be back fully. We assume so. Yuri Perez won't be. to start the campaign. So there'll be injuries. I think likely there'll be a rotation spot available for Eddie Cabrera if he's healthy as well. And that's a question mark. So most likely it won't be a roster crunch situation. But I think we've long asked the question with Edward Cabrera around, is this more of a reliever profile in general? And I don't think we clearly don't know the answer to that at this point. But I'm interested to see if the Marlins maybe consider that. Maybe they won't. Someone threw out there an interesting trade scenario with Edward Cabrera, and I thought this actually could be a perfect trade situation. And that was with the St. Louis Cardinals. And it was talking about Jordan Walker, who completely just fell away at the big league level, is back down at AAA. I think he's been struggling a bit at AAA, but recently got hot again, saying that, I wonder if that could be an interesting move for the Marlins. Jordan Walker, Eddie Cabrera, straight up 1-for-1, kind of like flamed prospect for flamed prospect, plenty of service time remaining and control remaining on both. Could that be an interesting one? I think it could. The Marlins and Bendix's profile in terms of player is very funny. Just want to mention this as well briefly. Everything's cyclical here with the Marlins. When I think back to, you remember the Don Mattingly days, and you remember that famous post-game presser where Donnie was, starting to lose his rag a bit at the lack of production and performance from his guys. And do you remember it? He listed them out and said, the big boys have got to go. Big boys have got to go. Not as in, it's time to go. Not that. Not like that go. It was like, we need to see something from these sticks, from the big sticks. I'm getting nothing from them. And then, of course, Kim Ang comes in, completely changes the profile of the Marlins and the hitters that they were looking for. They were like, do you know what? We're going to move away from big power sticks because it doesn't work in Lone Depot. It's too big. The numbers are too suppressed. You end up with just warning track flies over and over and over again. We're going to move away from the big boys have got to go. The big boys are gone. We're going to go contact heavy, and we're going to give you the paper cuts, death by a million paper cuts. We're going to try and contact you and single you to death, headlined by Luis Arias. You remember that? Big boys, paper cuts. Now the profile that Bendix is building, seemingly considering the trades that he's made, is back to the big boys. So the big boys are going to have to go again. I think it's very, very interesting. And I'm all for the big boys going. The question I've got is it time to completely adjust? If that's the approach you're taking, is it time to bring the fences in even more at Lone Depot? Like, for whatever reason, power sticks. It's a tough hitting environment. I don't know. But going back to it, I think it's interesting that that's the type of player that has been acquired recently. De Los Santos, I think, being the main one. Agustin Ramirez, another one. But, Jordan Walker, I think, is definitely fit into that mold. And so could that be a good trade fit? I think it could. Whoever made that suggestion on Twitter, I can't recall specifically, but I like it. I like that. It might have been Chris Towers, actually. Maybe it was Chris Towers talking about it. So, I'm in line with your thinking there. Let's hit the final ad, and then let's talk about. Actually, before we hit the final ad, I wanted to briefly talk about Skip Schumaker because the post-All-Star, post-deadline production and performance from the Marlins, in my opinion, has so much to do with Skip Schumaker. You only have to look over, north, west, quite some distance away. But in Chicago, a 20-game losing streak for the White Sox. Their season's cooked. They're terrible. The Marlins is cooked. They're terrible this year. But Skip Schumaker, even now into the, the depths of summer, has got these boys still scrapping, still delivering. Eddie Cabrera twirling gems. Jonah Bride lighting it up and pimping everything. Christian Pache. I was talking about him maybe being DFA'd at one point midway through an inning after it was a failed bunt and then a botched stolen base with a ball in the dirt, whatever it might be. I was thinking, man, oh man, this is not going to go well. Next thing is then, of course, Pache rolls in, big hit, RBI, ends up with an outfield assist as well. So stolen bag as well. So he does it all, Christian Pache. But, Skip Schumaker, I think a ton of credit has to go to Skip. Interestingly, Craig Mish was on his show earlier today, and he got asked this question. Maybe it's because I sparked it by saying, "Listen, I'd love Skip Schumaker to stay. I'm loving what he's doing." Skip Schumaker, the NL Manager of the Year in 2023, by the way. You all know that. And in my opinion, he's having a better managerial year in 24. Skip Schumaker has impressed me even more in 24 than 23. 23 was amazing. Amazing. But in my opinion, he's managing at an even higher level in 24. Craig Mish effectively ruling out that Skip will return with the Marlins. He thinks there'll be a change. He thinks that they'll mutually move on. Peter Bendix can select his guy, whoever that may be. We'll see. And Skip Schumaker likely heads over west, which will be extremely disappointing. Again, it's so hard for Marlins and the fans to see legit star talent exiting the organization. Luis Ariz is an elite player. Jazz Chisholm Jr. has the potential to be. Skip Schumaker is an elite manager. These guys are all leaving the organization. And the question is can Peter Bendix replace them? That's going to be the question. Let's hit the final ads, and then I want to talk about some of the roster moves very, very briefly, because I've gone long and I've segued a touch here. But this episode is brought to you by our good friends over at PrizePicks. Yes, sir. And it's America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in, baby. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the PrizePicks community today. And you can turn your $10 into 1,000. Yes, win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. And if you're looking for promos, PrizePicks has got you covered every week on Tuesdays. So yes, tomorrow they lower select player stat projections to help your lineup hit, or you can get your entry fees back if you have a losing lineup on Friday. So simply download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Welcome back to Locked On Marlins, guys, and happy Monday. Final part of the show, and we're running a touch long as I've segued into Skip Schumaker, Joey Bart, Jordan Walker. Yeah, if you got the rundown, you're probably thinking, what the hell's going on with this show? That's how my mind works, guys. You put a mic here and you hit record. I got a lot of thoughts, a lot of segues. Nevertheless, thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen, guys. Right, so Derek Hill added to the roster, the active roster. That is the corresponding move for Nick Gordon, or why Nick Gordon was DFA'd. Derek Hill. First, you want to call out, when I saw his picture, the picture of Derek Hill, it effectively looks like Dane Myers with a beard, by the way. Let me know if you're seeing that too. But I looked at it, I was like, that's Dane Myers. Oh, he's back. Oh, no, he's not. It's Derek Hill. Okay, who's Derek Hill? Nevertheless, we're going to find out. In 2024, by the way, Derek Hill has an OPS plus of 110. Yes, sir. This is an upgrade on Nick Gordon. It's a right-handed stick, though, by the way. I think that's another interesting piece. Pache, a right-handed stick. Derek Hill, right-handed stick. Obviously, Stowers, a left-handed stick. Jesus Sanchez, a left-handed stick. So, I get it here. Maybe, with Stowers, Nick Gordon, Jesus Sanchez, just maybe a couple too many lefties. I don't know. I'm not sure. Nevertheless, a 110 OPS plus this year. So that's encouraging. That has come across 2 organizations, Texas Rangers and the San Francisco Giants. Not at a ton. I mean, we're talking 21 games. We're talking 58 plate appearances, hitting 255, 455 slug. So, we'll see what we've got. He's spent, he's been at the Tigers, been at the Nats, Rangers, Giants. All in all, has had a 362 career plate appearances at the big league level across 5 campaigns, a career OPS plus of 74, which is basically in line with Nick Gordon. So is this an upgrade on Nick Gordon? Who knows? But frankly, Nick Gordon didn't do enough. Derek Hill's going to get the next opportunity, and we'll just cycle through. We'll wait to see. The other guy that's been added is Brett DeGoose. Again, pronunciation, emphasis on the goose on the second part of his surname. I'm not convinced that's the correct way, but nevertheless, Brett has been claimed on waivers from the Mariners. Interesting big league career. So 2021, pitched for 2 organizations, the Texas Rangers and the Arizona Diamondbacks. He threw 50 innings total in that 2021 campaign. No starts, so it was all as a reliever, and had a 7.56 ERA at that point. So not optimal in 2021. A couple of years away, then in a very small sample, a 2.70 ERA in 3 1/3 innings of work. Yes, this is effectively organizational depth. The Marlins are going to need to cycle some arms. We've seen it. They're going to need to be cycling through many, many arms. We wish Brett the best, and we'll see what he can deliver. Beyond that, I did see it flash up that he's got maybe a really good curveball. I saw on Twitter again, like Twitter's, it's the source of info, right? But this is where the Marlins are at this point. I do think that was a really good summary on Twitter that the Marlins are in spring training already. And it does feel like that. Like there's so much roster volatility happening right now. The Marlins have a 4-game series at home against the Reds to look forward to. So I'm looking forward to that one. The Reds, like the Braves, the Braves came into it needing to do something. The Reds right now are bottom of the NL Central, which kind of caught me off guard. They are 6.5 back in the wild card. So from a Reds perspective, they're going to be coming into Miami here thinking, we need a big series. We need a huge series. The problem that they're facing here is that the Marlins have been hot for a while. They're scrappy. And so the Reds may catch the Marlins at exactly the wrong time, but it is super tight in that Central. It remains super tight. It remains super tight for the wild card as well. The Reds look adrift at this point, but the thing is, you piece together 6 wins on the spin, anything's possible. And so the Reds, I'm very interested to see what they can do, what they can deliver in this series against a team by record anyway that they should be beating. Again, the Marlins post All-Star break, they aren't cannon fodder. The rosters, the lineups, everything looks like cannon fodder, but they're not playing like cannon fodder. Super encouraging. For me, I'd love to see a proper game. I'd love to see Kyle Stowers piece it together. I'd love to see him just settle in and get in the groove. So that's what I'm watching for in this Red Series. Guys, thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listen. Thanks for joining me on Monday. Nick Gordon DFA'd. The Braves series was split. Skip Schumaker has the boys playing out of their minds. Eddie Cabrera showing me something I've not seen from him for some time. Derek Hill is added to the active roster. Brett DeGoose claimed on waivers, sent down to AAA. We didn't even get time to talk about Xavier Edwards. So we will talk about Xavier Edwards on tomorrow's show and give him the love he deserves. Look forward to seeing you then, guys.